Welcome again to Champions Network TV, to another powerful edition of our Champions Network TV, your platform for impactful conversation. Fresh perspective, bold ideas that matters in the diaspora and the world at large. I am your host, Mija, and today we are diving into another important and timely discussion. The question is university education worth the time, money, investment? We are looking into whether ending in 4 years in more than 40,000 pounds or more worth the investment, and also is it going to prepare you for the work, the job environment? There are quite a number of professions. Some might want degrees, we don't know, but we are going to look into this critical uh, subject. We are honored today with the diverse opinions. Um, we have got Soko, Jenna, and Shumba. To our viewers, whether you are tuning in from across Africa, Europe, the Americas, or beyond, we invite you not just to watch, but engage with us. Drop your thoughts, your questions, comments in the chat. This is your platform. You are the champions. The question is it about passing exams and get a certificate, or the ability to do the work? To start us off with is none other than Shumba.
I think this is a topic that's it's engaging a lot of policy policy initiatives across the world, where I think a lot of people are beginning to question whether some of these degrees that people are going to university are actually helping, or it's just a matter of spending money that doesn't bring any results. So what you find is in some countries, a lot of people have acquired these degrees, and then when it comes to jobs, they don't get any jobs because when they go to the employers, they are told they haven't got the relevant experience. So as a result, you find that people will struggle with those degrees. And we're finding it as well in even developing countries like ours, Zimbabwe, where people are going to universities. You do a degree that when you finish, you don't find there's no job, there's nothing on the job market for you. And you begin to question whether those degrees are relevant, or do we need to tune up our education system to reflect what we really need. So I think it's a point of discussion to us and to our community and to the wider world to say, how do we tailor our education so that it suits the circumstances, or it suits the environment in which we are in. So I'll throw it back to the panel to say, how do we tailor our education to suit our economy, or to suit our environments?
Thank you very much, Shumba. To our viewers, always remember to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss when we come online. Um, the question is, and to our viewers, if you have got any thoughts, you can put it in the chat box, or you can phone in, and we will be able to uh, respond. Uh, We are back to the panel. The question is, how do we either remodify our educational system? What do we do?
Right, good evening. I think that question, we can say both. It is worth the time and the effort, and it might as well be the waste of time and effort, depending on the program that you have chosen and the environment that you are and the environment that you intend to put use the education that you have acquired. Also, about the environment, it needs to put use that degree. We also have got some programs that are heavily impacted by AI, of which those programs, the impact or the effect of the AI has been greatly felt in those in some of those areas, to the extent that at times you find now that those programs being irrelevant or substituted by AI or better and faster methods. So it's just solely on the choice of the program.
Misha, you are muted.
Oh,
Yes, Michelle.
come with the quotation there. I've never let my schooling interfere with my education.
I
Can you
think
unpack it?
because what we are talking about is schooling, not education. Education doesn't end. Right now, I can learn about farming without going to school. What we are talking about right now is schooling. Is it very important for our children to go to school for years and years? For us to go to school for years and years and acquire qualifications like degrees, master's degrees, PhDs. That's what we are talking about. Is it worth the time? Yes, if you want to get a job. Because when you go to apply for a job, they will ask for those qualifications. Let's say, for example, you want to go and work as a nurse. They will ask you if you are qualified. The qualifications are needed. If you want to, let's say, you want to start a business, for example, um, I don't think it's worth spending a lot of time at the university because most of these things are learned on your feet, are learned on the street. So we mistake schooling for education. Education is the one that keeps going. Schooling is akapedza chikoro. That's schooling. That's where we get the qualifications. That's the one we're asking. Is it worth for us to keep going? Because I was speaking to a woman who has got 3 master's degrees in very different fields, and my question to her was, "What are you going to do with them? Because you can only work one job. Are you going to pick a job and go to that job and rise in that field, or what are you going to do? Because right now you have got so many debts because we know we're acquiring all these degrees. You if you don't have the money to do it, you have to rely on government money, which they then expect you to pay back. Why would you need 3 master's degrees? For what?
I beg to differ with you there, Soko, to say it will be useless, because at times you find that those programs, they feed into each other, or I can say they complement each other. At times, these courses are, I'll tell you why. At times, some of these programs or these courses, they are so trimmed for a specific purpose, right? But then when you get into the real world and see what is needed, you find that yes, you've got a master's in this discipline, and now maybe you are now a CEO. You need to understand this discipline and that discipline so that you can effectively function. That's where now you find some people struggling over different master's programs or different educational lines. It will be actually to perfect or to see how you can be able to manage or interpret what is
She
being said.
she doesn't even have a job. She's wondering what to do. Makombe kanjani?
Ndiripo, listen.
Musho zviri
Eh,
sei?
Ndiripo, sister.
Bvunza imbonzwa vana makombe ava ndo vakanyatso.
eh,
But
Makombe,
zvakanaka kana sina basa but aine 3 mamasters. Rimwe one zvanzi you can put your eggs in different baskets. Pane one richabuda basa ipapo. Hata pakutora that person is actually ari kutaura ne 3. Anditi. So one of them chabata. So we can't say she wasted her time instead of staying with one. Ezvinenge zvane 3 zvirauro mumvura.
In Abu, the way I look at education is very, very different. I believe education is rehearsed knowledge. It's not designed to make anyone a genius or a success story. You only become a success story when you go through the minefield of exposure. Exposure is one of the most important factors affecting your success. There are other factors like positioning. One is to understand what constitutes positioning, personal branding, who are you and why, brand manifesto, manifesto of self. We avoid all those. There are a lot of people who haven't attained a lot of degrees or anything like that, but their reasoning capacity is at a different level because of their notion of exposure. They've liaised with this one, they've liaised with that, and then gained this type of knowledge, and so on and so on. What we need in life at the moment is numeracy and literacy. Those who have gone through guys like Piaget, they all talk about numeracy and literacy. But for some reason, we've decided to simply say, okay, they don't work, or they work in a particular sector, education sector, and so on and so on. What I'm trying to emphasize is once you're educated, you have some awareness. Degree is a confirmation of your time in a particular task. And that's all it is. Was once you find that you've got a degree, those who are degreed will find that your degrees is still as new as you got it on the graduation day. That should tell you something. It's a useless piece of paper. Because when you go out there and face the world, they'll ask you, what did you study? Gone are the interviews where they say, tell me about yourself. No, that's not going to happen anymore. That doesn't happen anymore. I remember going to an interview with HSBC Bank. There were 14 of us. We were put in a secular module. And then the guys who were assessing were sitting behind us. I think they were about 9, 10, 15 guys. And they said, the interview begins now. Nobody told us what to say or what to do or how we can do it. So it was the case of us initiating communication. It is on hindsight we started to learn that what they really want to understand from us, our notion of communication. Are we in a position to understand leadership? Can we communicate effectively? Do we understand personal branding? Do we understand brand manifestos, self-branding, and so on? Do we understand brainstorming? Do we understand the notion of wisdom? Do we understand that the notion of choice is nothing but a written piece of paper? Because choice is an evolving syndrome. Your choice, the choice you make today, is not necessarily the same choice you're going to make tomorrow. So when you talk of education, education is just an awareness scheme. The real education, that's why they talk about the education of life, begins as when you go into the exposure navigation pathway. I thank you.
Wow.
Mm.
Here we are.
Yeah, but we can't really say it will be just a piece of paper. Yes, education is about instructions and being able to follow a particular way of doing things meticulously, or somehow we can just say at times cramming some things, right? Of which now, when you are now in the outside world, we need some conceptual skills to see how we can solve problems, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is, should we link education, or yes, can we link education with success or with
Jenna,
um,
with the
mm,
experience I know you have, I can simply tell you very easily that what you need in life is numeracy and literacy. That's all you need.
I don't get that.
The rest you can gain from the street. And you know that. What you know now, if you had known 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have gone through the troubles of you have gone through certain education structures. I feel the same myself. The sleepless nights and blah 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 and so on and so on. There's a shorter way to it if you invest in it in a particular model.
But at times you find it kuti at times you find kuti vanhu ava vangori kana vakandwa mari vasina njere muzivo,
Vari kukandwa
then
mari because of how they articulate their skills.
no,
Yes.
that's when you realize the importance of education.
No,
Could what
no.
next?
Education, haupuwe mari because you're educated. Unopuwa
Ah,
mari because of your reasoning ability.
Education is very important. Schooling ndo yatitaura
mhm,
panapa.
Kuti
Education itonzi kudzidza hakuperi. Kunonzi nevakukuya kudzidza hakuperi. Kwozonzi mwana akapedza skuru.
what is chinonzi exposure chini mukubvunza
There is a difference.
Okay.
Exposure inokupa education isingaperi handiti.
mhm,
Ukapedza
mhm.
degree rako unograduate wotopedza wotonzi akapedza skuru.
Soko tinotanga education, right?
Yeah.
You learn from the known into the unknown. This is something I got from my father, who was a teacher, right? We learn from that. Kana mabva ipapo, the next port of call is exposure. Zvokuti apedza MBA, akumboita yekuchina, akumboita yekuindia is not beneficial at all. What you need is exposure. Schooling. If you want to go the schooling route at Topezi, Nas.
Ndiyo schooling yacho yatitaura kakuti unoti mwana wadzidza
Because schooling is about positive reinforcement.
education haiperi.
Education haiperi why?
Tinoramba chidzidza.
Ukagona kuerenga, ukagona kunyora, the rest is exposure. Handizve?
Exposure, that's the education.
That's
where
education is knowledge. I'm
That's
teaching you something so that in futuristic reasons, you are in a position to confirm what I've taught you. 1 plus 1 is 2, right? I need you to test your memory bank. With time, unozodzoka uchiti zvishonda kuzoti memory 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, right? That skill iyoyo inouya through education. Kana waanayo wakuenda kuexposure inoda inonzi skills application. And that's the way it works. That's how I see it.
Mbwenzo wezvutaurwa naLuisa, and education empowers individuals with knowledge, skills, and critical thinking ability.
Kana kona usinofunga unoita sei? Koma apostori ari kugadzira mugomo asina kuenda kuchikoro muno muti. Variko vanoda. Never been to school. But ane skill yekugadzira mugomo. Achikupa.
I don't think kuti you cannot say atingati hawana kuenda kuchikoro mapostori, because one ngoenda kuchikoro, but it's not our type of schooling.
Our type of schooling.
Yeah. So isusu tine formal schooling and it our one their own sort of, it's some type of homeschooling.
Vocational.
Shumba,
Yeah.
what tends to happen is in Zagadaika. People learn from the known, right, into the unknown through behaviors, right? Wanonyasa panoti baba wanochita zvakadai mugomo inogadzirwa so, and then they go through the attempting phase kuti harigadzani bogadzirawo changu.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Because what normally happens, you know those my societies akaita sechipostori ayaya,
Yeah.
they are actually quite structured.
Yeah.
Waine vanhu vanoziva kugadzira mugomo, vane vanoziva kugadzira vanatswanda nechichi,
Yeah.
vane vanogona kugadzira izvi. So what they have it's a sort of an apprentice sort of format, but it's not formalized, and it ndine mwana inini ndiri kuda kuti adzidzewo kugadzira mugomo, kungoenda mudhara chidzidzisaiwo mwana wangu kugadzira mugomo. That's apprenticeship. Kwakudzidzawo kugadzira mugomo from a master, and this used to happen not only in kumapostori. I remember my dad telling me how he learned building. Pawakapedza chikoro, he didn't have a job, so there was mudhara aizikanwa aita zvekuvaka. Mudhara wababa wangu wati achienda apa unobatsira yeyo this guy kuwaka kwaanenge achiita. Ndopedza akaendawo dzichitotangawo kuona kuti zvinonzwai until he started doing it himself. Okay. And he graduated and started doing it himself. He didn't have a formal qualification when it came to building, kana kuti wakaita a diploma or anything. But if you ask him, ukawabvunza manje kuerenga maplans and everything, he was an expert in that. So I think modes of learning dzinoita dzinosiyana, and panapa tineti tikuda kuzoisa emphasis now to say what sort of education style should we follow, because problem yetakuita now, this formalized education system, like we said in our other episode, is irikuita channel kids through one sort of gate. I scoop away my alternatives. Every child has to go to be academic, instead of kuti wamwe wana wasati wato akangodzidza zvomataura wamakombe kuti mwana akangodzidza basic arithmetic odzidza language, anditi hamuchasweri muchimuendesa kuti enda unoita zvimwe zvinhu zviri so complicated. Akutoenda kunoita farming, akuenda kunoita something else, zvinhu zvinomubatsira, kwete kuti wana wese wari kufoswa through one gate of academia.
Makombe, you came a little bit late. My initial remarks was kuti it depends on what type of program, because there are some programs, for instance, medicine. You cannot just say you have finished the A level, then we say, okay, he must go into the hospital and see what other doctors are doing.
Well, they're not doing apprenticeships for medicine.
No.
They're not
Yes.
doing apprenticeships for medicine.
Yeah, they are doing them even
They
here.
are doing them. Yeah.
Kudhara vaita sei kwedu kumusha
Even ikoko kudhara ndozvowaita wananyamukuta waizodzidzira kuzoita wananyamukuta wamangwana. They were to learn from waitanga one tumabasa tukudika achidzita zvakati wachitodzidza ipapo.
But there were no such laws as existing ones now. Human rights, the laws are questioned. There were too many experiments. There were too many experiments and people were dying as well.
Kana wadaro watotanga so.
All right, I did that.
Chakutokubata so.
Ini ndaivana sekuru vangu vainge vasina kumboenda kuchikoro ka asi vaikuvakirai imba nyangwe vachiveza matombo chaivo chaivo kuti vakaimba ichibuda zvokuti kasa kwavana kana kuchikoro kwavainge vakaenda.
Inini ambuya wangu anga ari anyamukuta midwife. She never learned from anywhere, and she brought into the world over 300 kids, including quads, triplets, quads. The most vana vakaunza into the world, 5 babies.
You are drawing us back to some of the episodes that we've done before.
No, we are not. We are just saying.
Listen to where I'm going. We are going back in the sense of Tizo. We have got our form of education that has always been in existence, especially for us as Africans. Then came some other people with another form of education, of which we are now calling that is education. Education. Ikoko tutaita kutori chikoro ichocho chekuti vazvarise munhu ichocho, but not kuti vakaenda kuuniversity but vakatodzidza ivavo.
Saka ini ndambokutsanangurirai kuti pane schooling, pane education. Ndikaenda kuna Makombo ndikati Makombo ndidzidzisewo business, anondidzidzisa hazvina certificate but ndotogona kuita business kusvika ndatoita millionaire. Handiti mukunzwa. Ndoenda kuna Jena ndoti Jena ndidzidzisewo kurima. Handiti Jena achandidzidzisa kurima. Ndigorima zvokuti vanhu vanotoshama kuti akomana murimi ari papapa. Handina kana chitambi chequalification yekuti ndakamboenda ku-school of farming. Education haiperiba. Chinopera is
all right. So try and understand it from this way. Right. Education system refers to structures, right, in a formal sector. Right. Schooling demands actual experience of attending school and participating in classroom activities.
andindoya vari kubvunza kakuti saka madegree kuti madegree ane basa here, because kuita degree unotoatenda. Anditi there's a formal thing yaunofanira kuita muchinyora madissertation enyu muchidini.
Okay, we will go back to the debate of qualifications. Okay. Ukapoa BSc economics, what is it? Tell me.
Nasi mjapeza matona mtulika baba.
Mukaita BSc economics, what is
The question was,
you have achieved.
Yeah, but the question is,
you have achieved.
The question is, hanzi zvine basa here izvozvo, toramba tichiita izvozvo, zviri kutibatsira here izvozvo? That is the question.
Right. Hazvisi kutibatsira in the sense yekutika. Right. Let me go back to brainstorming. Chiri kuitika chacho ndechekutika. When you grow up, kana whether in whatever environment yako, you must be in a position to liaise or link with like-minded entities, right? Kune vanhu waunenge uchiti if I learn one or two things. If I learn from this one, I'll learn one or two things. If I learn one or two things. So you end up in a circle of friends. Circle of friends, mune ground rules amo imomo. Right. Zamine ground rules amo. People are chosen in line with expertise. It's not good you're not gonna make articulate thinking. Doing you on. Can you brainstorm? Can you gel with others? From brainstorming, we go to the next phase. You go to okay, knowledge. She knows knowledge. She can I watch about she knows wisdom. She Right. Choice analogy. No understand it. Choice is just a fallacy. Because choice yako nasi nogona kuchinja. Mangwana inenge ya chingo can be defined differently. So
I think nendikuda kupinda pari kutaurwa nasoko kuti I think where I see the problem is our tendency to look down on how we do things. Because ukada kutarisa knowledge systems aya akangofanana izvo zvemataura kuti isusu taingofunga kuti kuti uite doctor kuti uite chi you have to have this kind of formal education, but what we are finding in the West now is almost the similar system iri kutaurwa nasoko apa yekuti iko zvino wakuti kune maapprentice doctors anditi wakuti kune maapprentice midwives. What does the apprentice mean? It's the hands on the job.
Yeah.
You are working with the midwife. Iwe uri kusvika uchidzidza uchiona kuti midwife vari kuita sei uchitanga unzi aiwa ita so you are learning from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yet before they found that the problem with the learning before the curriculum before was munhu unoenda kuuniversity unonopedza university yemidwife but zvazikanwa hapana handiti paunoiswa paward you are blank.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of late there's been those changes that have been effected now in the curricula for all the universities, especially I'll look at the universities here. There's no single degree that you can do without going for attachment for at least a year.
All right,
so, but that, no, but you are sent to places where you can do hands-on on whatever you are studying. But they are getting them.
This is why going attachment the wrong places. Instead of how to make beverages, how to make him toriro or whatever. we are misplacing the
knowledge. There was this debate muno mu UK and when they were looking at the might of the industrial Germany, what is it Germany that is doing that we in the UK are not doing? And they realized kuti muno trikungo pama degree certificates aya, but the people, they really don't know what they are supposed to do, and they are not employable when they get to the jobs that they train from my universities. Yet in Germany now, they emphasize the role of technical colleges.
Yeah.
Whereby it's a hands-on approach to learning. You are actually being sent every day doing the things that you eventually do for life. So that's where the difference comes in now. When your economy maybe emphasizes academics, even though kind of my placements, but sometimes it's so short-lived, 3 months, it won't address. Ndaitaura naomwe sekuru wangu waishanda pazesa paipai wanhu woke ngwapinda pazesa nguwa yerodisha iyayi wakapinda wari maapprentice waitaura kuti most of the people wanobva kuuniversity graduates electricians aya, he was an electrician, they don't know anything. Iwe kwanosvika apedza degree rake re-electrician, electrical engineering, he's got his qualification as an electrician, but through apprentice he had to train those degreed engineers. So you see the importance of hands-on learning rather than this pushira one through this academic route. I think it's something that needs to be looked at.
Pane contribution from Louisa, she's saying schooling is crucial for both individual and society, fostering personal growth, economic prosperity, and social progress. Vamatiza vakati vari kubvunza kuti we agreed to make Zim our case study on this question. Maybe you may want to contribute if we respond whether are we going to make Zimbabwe a case study or we make it general.
I think this is something which is general. We can't make okay. The reason why most people talk about Zimbabwe is the reference point of because we are actually here. We shouldn't lie. We are all Zimbabweans here, so we have got much experience in what happens in Zimbabwe, and also you now being there, you also have got experience in what happens there. But if Mr. Matisa has gotten any other place that he can tell us about, he's welcome to come and put the contributions. Okay, now what I wanted to say was this colonial education did its job quite well. I can see from our discussion here, because what happens is we have been brainwashed to believe that what the white man does is always better. I'll take, for instance, I just saw I was saying Germany is now going on to the promoting technical more than this, right? Which means we're not talking of German, right? Can we also talk of Zimbabwe giving the farms to the people that did nothing, no idea? But now, if you see the auction floors, what is happening with tobacco there? Those guys never had went to school for that. It is also happening. So everywhere it is happening. That's the revolution. But let's not just look at one side. Let's appreciate the good from both sides.
Ndozvendataura jena wani ndikati problem yedu is we tend to look down upon our education, and I emphasized what Soko said kuti actually maybe varungu havazokutauriri pachena, maybe that model of education that they started to implement yekuti wanenge waona yeapprenticeship system, maybe they learned it from you. Waona izvozvi zviri kutaurwa naSoko zviya zvekuti we've got nyamukuta oita maassistants ake anenge achiona kuti vari kuita so next 5-6 years ndiye atonyamukuta. Handiti hapana difference this apprenticeship system. So we have tended to look down upon the way we do things. Ndozvemuri kutaura imimi jena kuti even pamafarmers it works that way, kuti kana baba wako akakura wari farmer unotanga kurima at what age?
I think makombe akambotaura.
Yeah, even iwo arungu wacho achiuya, when we talk of colonization, mombe dzakaita wana Thomas Mickles waidzitora kupi, it appears as if we didn't have anything. These people benefited even from our livestock. Ukaona some of the breeding we do, go on social media, there's this farmer ari kuAmerica anotaura about the Mashonaland bull, and it achitaura the Mashona bull and how we were doing this genetic inonzi yekumixa mahybrid here. And we came up with this bull inonzi iri disease resistant. They've taken that concept to America. So who were teaching our people? We had that education, but the tendency to look down upon our own systems, no problems. We should be amalgamating all these systems. Could we learn the best from our system? We learn the best from there and we put it together. Not good. This system is better than ours.
I think let's also take into consideration what Dr. Matiza is saying. He was thinking maybe in the answer to our question of is the time we use at university and the resources worth it, and maybe he was looking at a broader perspective to come up with a conclusion that says either yes or no, or in the middle we don't know. And he then added and says, wanted maybe a matter of the context.
Yeah, he is right that it is contextual, and you cannot give a straight answer to say yes, or you can bluntly say no, because it is contextual. That's why I think he was also asking the question to say, can we use Zimbabwe as a case study? Because he wanted to put context into the discussion. But we said we're keeping it open.
And then
Yeah.
we got people who do a degree or degrees or whatever, and then never use them and go in a very different direction. How is that helpful? Is it because vari kuenda kumunoita degree vachiri vana vadiki here vari kukurumidza kusarudza? Is it because we are choosing for them?
I think there is a school of thought that says finishing a degree or a course, it just testifies that your mind can be trained in a shortest possible time to do anything. So it doesn't. So whatever you do may not necessarily be your vocation, but you can use transferable skills from what you have learned to apply it in whatever you may want to do.
It just switches you on, so to speak.
I might be wrong.
No, you're right. You're right. It just stretches your brains here and there so that you can be able to accommodate any new things that come. Because some of the things like the conceptual skills, you cannot say you want to learn it from that that university or from the education system.
What about the scenario that we are now finding in, if we take Zimbabwe particular? I was speaking to one of the pro vice chancellor for one of the universities, and what he was telling me is every student is, once they write their exam, they are waiting for the next flight to go into the diaspora. In that context, is educating our youngsters, not particularly only in Zimbabwe, but I think it's a phenomenon in across some African countries. Is it serving the purpose? Because it then means we are training them for other nations.
Hamuna mabasa, vanogogara.
Yeah, that one will tend to pull us to the political side. But in any case, we'll never run away from that. But okay. But in any case, if that person has passed a degree or finished a degree, right, it means you have actually opened the more opportunities for that person. And like if that person did not go to the university, that person would then be actually a burden to us or to the country, because those are the people that go on to Toriro and wait in the roads, thieves robbing. You see, so in other ways, it's good also. So we can say it is helping and it's worth that time, because to separate boys from men.
Yeah,
Sharp.
I think politics is the elephant in the room, but we'll leave it for now because it's across the whole continent, really, which is sad. So what I was gonna say is to emphasize on this aspect. We look down on upon our our expertise in certain things. There is a paper that I was reading. Michelle sent it to you. It talks about the Eastern Highlands during when the Portuguese first came to, before it was even named Zimbabwe, when they were doing their explorations, meeting the Munomutapas and all that stuff. They said the Eastern Highlands was run by a dynasty of miners. There was a lot of mining, especially gold, happening in the Eastern Highlands. And these people had so much expertise that what's happening now, some some gold miners, foreign gold miners. They are not even going to the Eastern Highlands to explore for these mines. What they are doing is they are actually using that information that was written by the Portuguese, where they went and where they saw those mines. They are actually using that information to identify mine. There's a mine now, a gold mine in Odzi, that these guys, a foreign company is mining gold there. It identified it through that kind of information. They didn't do any exploration because they could see where these ancient miners were mining, and they just got that claim, and they know the gold is there already. So it's that kind of mindset that we need to have as well, to say our systems, we have got this misconception of an economy as if we lived in non-existent economies before the Europeans came. We had our own economies in mining, in fishing, in agriculture. We had sustaining economies. That's why it was called Munumtapa Empire. It was an empire that was running on an economy. It was an economy-based empire, which had its own monies and everything. That's why a lot of things hidden from us. I was asking one person, because the Rhodesians, they found a Roman coin, a Roman gold coin in Mutare, a very ancient Roman old coin, but I don't know where it is now. And this showed the trade that was happening between the Munumtapa Empire and the Romans. And what time are you talking about the Roman Empire? Which years are you talking about the Roman Empire? So we had this ability. So what happens with Europeans is they have this knowledge of our ability in doing these things. But when the history was rewritten, most of these things was wiped out of our reach. But if you start going now to read the Portuguese history, you come up on some of these things that I'm talking about.
Let's also mirror our discussion with some of the initiatives that are happening in Zimbabwe. I think last week we had the Ruarashi from Tanaka Industrial Training Center, who she did the A-levels and she didn't do well. Enrolled in motor mechanics in a college in Mondoro there, and now she is a leading mechanic in one of the leading companies, bread making companies in Zimbabwe, and she's now doing very well. So what shall we say? Because if she had thought maybe she needed to redo an exam so that she can go to university, by now she might still be still not having qualified. What do we think with such scenarios?
Yeah, alternatives are always there. Same, okay, you can take the other alternatives if you are talking of success or making money. Tokonapesa takutarisana magaya nana vakandiwa zvakaramba zvekuchikoro izvi, but they are living large. So should we say now, because of that, then we say the university education is not worth the time? We can't do that. It is worth it.
There's quietness in the house.
Where are those two other people?
Vakateerera humba.
Ndanyarara zvangu humba.
I'm just listening to what you're saying, mate.
Saka tatitoregedza kuenda kuyunivhesiti here because takuti vakomana vari kuita mari ava macollege dropouts. ende zvichawanoita.
But pane trend ka Zuckerberg college dropout.
Those are not our as a trend.
Microsoft college dropout. Virgin Atlantic college dropout. No.
Saka totera udropout here kunobhadhara.
Aiwa, kana uine plan ika. Chanda against nacho ndechekuti munhu anoita masters right ku-UK woenda ku-South Africa unoita imwe MBA, wobva kwena zvina kukwana woenda kuChina unoita imwe MBA. That is not enough. Ukaita degree, that's enough. Indakadzidza wakomana nevanhu vaidriva ndege, vari mastudents vachiuya kubva kuprice kwavo vachiuya nendege vachiuya nadzo kuchikoro. Ndakadzidza navanhu vakadaro, and it was an eye opener for me. Kutoti wow, uyu anotouya nendege kuchikoro, isaizi yangu ndikutotya motika yekudrive.
Utofunga kuti ukapedza form 6 uda kuita pilot kurotoita basa.
Vari kutoita cross training across chakuti. We got to learn these things from another perspective. Anokutaura across Zimbabwe yese kuti yange yakamira sei kuti mukuwisi if dai takasiyira Ian Smith anga achida kugadzira a masterpiece town planning. Chizoka kunana mukuwisi kwese kwamava kuisa roundabout kuya kwese uko. But haidi kuwana chance yakadaro.
Kohomba ndakaenda kuprazi kwana Jena ndiri kuchikoro ndikasvotadza kudriva tractor but Jena ainge akutorova mota.
You see what I mean? Yeah, it's
saka zveapprentice zvekutaurwa izvi zvinoshanda because zvamutaura makombe kuti vana wana muzvina plus vaiuya kuchikoro but vatoo nemabhizinesi avo.
One skill kudhara. Ukaitawo laki sezvo ndakaita aunzi uye uchimbouya kuholiday kuprice kwavo kwedu isusu. Unotoitawo experiment nemota ipapo because the farm is so vast zvekuti haumboenda kutara.
Saka Humba chipindira mubvunzo wekao vanga vainazvo zvinhu izvi chavainga vachivinga kuchikoro chii?
Exposure, socialization. Pane vamwe waitonesa waitonzi student ningi anovhimidzwa kuta forger. It's just too advanced.
Kuchikoro zvakaita munomu mapublic schools zvakaita ana Eton ana Cambridge havaende kunodzidza.
No.
Vana vakangwara vari kuendera ikoko munetwork.
Yes.
Handiti. By the time anobva ikoko vanenge ana baba vachitamba gorofu uko, imimi uchada kutsvaga basa. Iye basa rake anenge achitoziva kuti ndichaenda kunoshanda kubhengi kwakati.
Yeah.
Handiti. Saka apprentice iri kutaurwa kai inotibatsira kuti not only panowana qualification anobva aona experience. Handiti experience kana kumabasa vazhinji vanoita mainterview ana makombe avatimbobvunza akangoya achiti ndine qualification kashoma kumutora, vanoda experience. Saka akaita apprentice manje ari kubva adzidza ipapo. Handiti I think that's a good way to go. Kuti vada kurima endai kwana Journal munodzidziswa mumunda macho chaimo, kwete zvokugara padeski wonzi this is soil erosion muchiita zvekudhirowa. Endai munonyatsoona zvichiitwa.
Ini mwana wangu akadzidza zvemabhiza. Itatomboita bhiza isu in my family. Hapana anga nebhiza, hapana. But kuchikoro kwakadzidza kwakuine zvinhu zvakadaro. Yes, okay. Pane zvavari kuona.
But guys, tine mamwe profession, noble professions like actuarial scientists. Muda kuti aitwe sei?
Those zviri kuwaste time. Look at accountants now.
Havagoni kuita apprentice.
Look at accountants now. Hazvichaita chartered accountant. Big books yakawaya.
Ivavo vamuri kutaura Jena havagoni here kuita apprentice.
Yeah. Because varungu vaitozviita.
Because paanozopedza degree ka anozokundwa nemunhu anga atori pabasa akaenda pabasa.
Ndandina blazi wangu cousin brother wangu kwaitichwa inonzi tobacco auctions, right? He used to work there. He was the starter what do I want to that. He was an apprentice. Izvozvo. Akazopedza atone plus zvake.
Yeah, ndizvozvo.
Yeah.
Imi mana Jena timbobvunza makaita madegree api?
Because in every discipline unoita experiment yekuona kuti zvinobva kupi zvichienda kupi.
Jena makaita degree rekurima here?
Because kana tiri mafamuka saka I had to first do the agriculture, then I will then do something else.
Agriculture. Okay.
But then like that's why I was defending that person who's ane things zodi because right agriculture kapedza ndikazoita marketing.
Hanzi Naranga Chapi. There is a misconception that a total understanding on the difference between so-called university dropouts of the caliber of successful people in the West and dropouts of the failed kid in Africa. What is the misconception, Anga? Because of depression. Also,
freezer. Mati makazoenda mukanoita chi?
Oh, that's why I was defending that person about Tizo ane 3 masters well. Ndichati they can augment each other kuti zvinenge zvichifamba sei.
I think ipapo Jena, I think how it works, let's say uripabasa ukuita something and then you feel like no, I want to up my game.
Yes.
Or you're making something.
Yeah, muripa farmi mimi. Mobva mati asi I want to kuti ndinyasobatisisa ichi conceptualize a farming business anditi. Makwenda manje unoita masters in business administration focused on farming. So that you are scaling up this thing. That's where I agree with you. Where pataurwa nasokope kuti you find this tendency kuti vanhu kunofollow degrees kuti waita this masters washaya basa, you go and do another one, washaya basa, you go and do another one. You know, so that's a total
aita political administration unotibatsira obva philosophy oona kuti hazvina kuri kudiwa munhu anobata nemaoko obva futi oenda zvinoshanda
ngaite zvetikutaura apprenticeship
kudzidzira uri pabasa.
Imi muda kuzotaura kuti madegree akaunda ndosvengere ndobhora.
Aiwa ndiri kuti ngaachuze kunoshandika kwaona kune basa saka kuzotanga aita masters anozopedza mabasa achapera.
Aiwa Jena kapaiti time yaunopedza degree kuIndia mabasa achapera wodzokera futi.
Wobvunza kuti basa riri kupi?
Kapaiti time yaunopedza degree racho kuPoland basa racho rapera.
Saka kuti womamutoriro here?
Apprentice.
Encourage zvese zvana apprenticeship zvamukuita izvi. I used to know vanhu vaita homeschool their children. Vana vacho vanodzidza chii? Now I see their point. Because mwana ukamupa a significant structure of knowledge kuti ita so, ndoda kuti ite so, tinoda kuti so, in an stimulating environment, anoenda more. Imi vazhinji wedu tiri kuenda kunotora degree so that tione basa rakanaka. That world is gone, guys. It's gone because by the time you get to 50, right? Try looking for a job at 50 in the UK. They don't look at you. Hauna skiluka. Hauna chinyowani chauchataura chinyowani chausina kuita kare. Because history yako inofana kuita kama kuti ndakatomba yakati, ndikazoita yakati. I don't know, have you considered lecturing? It's also you must be in a position to work on what we call creativity, to create our own businesses, to create our own industries. Those are not fun.
Mizvamaverenga comment here.
Mati?
Yeah.
Misha comment here.
yaverengwa
Yaverengwa na Makombe, but
ndiyawerengwa na
manje
Okay.
tikuona vanhu vari 55 going on to 60 vari kukurudzirana kuti dzokera unoita degree
Rekuitisei?
unozoita seiko kana wapedza
Zvinenge zvatoramba kana usvika ipapo. Unoda kuzoshandisa basa ripi? Unongosvika wakaritaya.
Zvakangofanana crazy yevanhu vari kuti ndiri kunyora
dai vanachena mono
There's a way for people who say ndiri kunyora bhuku. Kasi unoda kunyora bhuku rekuti standard
Makambatikira madobatsera.
unoda kunyora bhuku iko zvino. Kana anyora anombofamba naro for a few months ozoti ndakanyora bhuku mufunge nzendo.
I met a lady at 88 I with a PhD.
Yeah. And then I met a bus driver who is studying, astrology, something like that. Because muda kwenda nazvo kupi zvinhu zvenizvi hanzi kuzimbabwe hakuna. Okay.
Okay. Can we also mirror this question with respect to the changing technology, even with the advent of AI, fast moving, being stuck in a 3-year or 4-year degree program? By the time you finish, will you not be obsolete by then?
Yeah, that's why Cambridge, Oxford, kani anonzi short courses aya kuti okay, it's it's a module type of course. If it's finance, run for 9 weeks, 9,000. Ariko makosi akadaro. You just concentrate on that, wombozwa kuti zvinofamba sei, on so on. Asi kuti muenda unorara ikoko, hakuna zvakadaro. Because munenge muchitichwa nema-industry leaders. Yeah.
Not zvokumirira professor rupuwa 230 kana mwedzi wapera.
Because by the time yaunopedza degree ka zvakaita coding vanoita software engineering vanonyatozviziva izvozvo. Ukandoenda 3 years uri kuuniversity zvese zvawadzidza zvese by the time yaunobuda zvakatodarika.
Imunotombodaro zvenyu makosi akadaro. Indine mufesi wangu inini akatontaura kuti iwe wakatondiwestera time kuti ndiende kuchikoro iwe. Kuenda kuuniversity unoita medicine kudii. You wasted my time. So you wasted my time. And on hindsight, I did.
So I think we can say initially when this started, it was taken as a route kunoita mari. Nzira yekuzoenda kutsvaka kuti uzoita mari. Zvinezvi mari yacho kana yawanika chitozvisiya uchiita zvemari izvozvo.
I see a reason here. It was a model to occupy people.
Oh, to delay people.
Yeah. Occupy you and then you get delayed.
It also prevented us from thinking outside the box.
Outside the box.
Unofanira kuziva quadratic equation nayo quadratic equation uchada kufunga chimwe chimwe. Yeah.
Because mangwana unonorohwa naticha kwasaidza unorara wakati pakwamwa uchidzidza.
European history. The American War of Independence. Can almost take Gonika Wifoira.
Purification of sulfuric acid.
Yeah.
Diagram here. Diagram 2 pages. Diagram 2 pages.
Isabel Brunel. Akawaka bridge asina kumboenda kana pagwana kana one day. Bristol Suspension Bridge. Akaiwaka. Arimo if you read about it. And the number of successful so-called dropouts in the West, in case of the likes of Bill Gates, were simply because the likes of Bill Gates are extremely bright in maths, because it's entrepreneurs AI you are kind of bright in the GP mind. How do you become bright in maths? Life is about abstract reasoning ability and positioning, effective networking. Those are the core cornerstones of any successful enterprise. That's how I look at it.
Saka kwedu hakuno here
Because ungada kutanga kuti munhu anga ari bright kuita bright kuita sei. Ability to conceptualize, rehearse knowledge. Do you call somebody bright?
No, I think the other brightness inenge ichitaurwa inenge iri kuti munhu anenge atoona manje kuti he is ahead of what is happening even from in class kuti
Yeah.
chese chiri kuitwa atori ahead otozopedzera ona kuti no man I'm wasting my time here, I better do my own things.
Ndakadza nomwe brother Ian. Anga asingasiye pencil chaipo pese ka akangowana time anenge akutodrowa kutanga kudrowa, you'll be drawing something. Akanzi hey, anenge atori he's one of the finest architects in America.
Ranga aruda kuuya kutone explain nyaya yaBill Gates yega pa.
aiwa tingati abvunza Ranga kuti saka kwedu hakuno here vaigona
The real story of Bill Gates ngawe timudzidzise.
Ranga fona pa number idzi then tinokuisa tokunzwa vanhu vachitaura.
But still kana kwedu kwacho zvakaitika ukaivheni kuno kuAfrica we have those people almost like but almost but vakaitawo like dropouts and got another alternative way of getting rich. Vandambotaura vakafunga kuti okay zvechikoro izvi kaizvi is not getting me anyway, vakapedzera kuti asabhena nditange zvangu yangu chechi. Vasanganiswa nemari. It's true. So hatifani nongokopera chitongoti no madropouts ekuwesterners ndo vakaita something better.
Ndizvozvo Ranga unofona paWhatsApp number idzodzo, then we can connect and we can hear your contribution.
Afunga kujustify nyaya yake chaparadza.
Rega tinzoti anofona here.
Anofona here. Azuti panokakatwawo nepana.
Vane nharo madhokota ewaya manje.
handi zvaita sei?
Takamira Ranga ari kuda kutaura nyaya yake.
Oh, okay.
Bill Gates.
Yeah, Bill Gates.
Has the real history of Bill Gates.
Okay, mkoma Ranga, pindai tinzo.
Bill Gates akataura nyaya big. Wositogona kuudza the real story yamachipisa kwaifrita. The real story yamatamba nadzo.
Okay.
I would be glad to explain it verbally. Oh yeah, tikunzwe.
More verbally, ndo yachati kuda kuti ataurire iyo.
Ndo yatikutodaga iyo.
Dai mutipe verbal.
Tipe verbally mkomaranga.
Rega ndumpe ningene aite kupinda muno tauda kuvhara manje.
Ampinze.
Ngapinde tinzo.
Ranga shandisa link iyo upinde mstudio.
But chikoro chakangonaka wakumana, but tingatizototi university yazonyanya asi kachikoro kanodiwa, like you were saying kuti numeracy and so some simple things.
Yeah.
dzokuti ugone kuverenga mari yako.
Innocent letters, yes. Zvinodiwa izvozvo. But zvekuti Pythagoras haakana.
Pythagoras inondigumbura iyoyo nyaya yaPythagoras.
Unoona kuti okay, you've done well.
Nyaya yaPythagoras takairoverwa isusu neshamhu. Nyaya yaPythagoras shamhu.
Ndakanzwa mumwe achipopotawo kuti that's blast furnace. What is blast furnace? What for?
Ndakasoti kana tichango geography kudhara. Whether the state of atmosphere at a particular place at any one moment. Mulungu akatondibvunza kuti akatibvunza kufiswa kana
Uri kuzvinzwira zvotaurwa naRu izvi.
But you have to realize that the new generation don't really care about education as much as you guys do.
Because it's most of it, most of
it. To be specific, university, as they see it, as expensive. That is, the new generation looks at university as an expensive, unnecessary expensive.
Yeah, but isusu toda kuti vana vedu kuuniversity ndozonotaura kuchechi, ndozonoshaina kuti wangu ndiloya.
Haambodaro kana.
Wangu ini.
Wanoti muchikumuziya here uyu Eugenia. Tati kumabiko ake last week. Ameno hanza degree ra Eugenia chi. Hanza BSc. And then what? Nzarutsvaga basa.
Meno kana mine basa kuti munogona kumupa here.
Totanga kumuziva kuti ari mumba.
Ndine hama yangu akandigumbukira ini mwana akaenda kuIndia akanoita degree akadzoka zvikanzi ashaya basa takuendesa kuPoland kuita masters akadzoka zvikanzi ashaya basa takuendesa kuUkraine kuita PhD
kuUkraine kwakazoita hondo
ozodii
ande naRu chikoro chorwadza
ende kana vapedza hamuna futi hapana mabasa.
I think pando ine chashaya vechidiki vacho kuti vave pakati papedu pana.
Daidzai kana Ru ivava ngavauye.
Ndone opinion.
Ndo varikutaura nyaya because isusu zvedu zvekuda kunzi mwana wangu ane madhigirii venyu havana.
Rangauya manje.
Wangu mwana hangaroore wenyu haana dhigirii.
Kwanza mukundizwa here.
Tikukunzwai.
Oh, thanks. Good to see you all. You have a very good topic you are discussing, guys. I see Jenna there. I see Saka. Great to see you. No, my phone is not fully charged, so it might drop. But the main point I wanted to share with you guys is that, you know, sometimes it's very misleading when we generalize and say, you know, school dropouts, and we give examples of those that are in the West as successful people, the likes of Bill Gates. And then we start, we just say, yeah, you know, this is, you know, this is doable. You're a dropout. You can still be successful. Look, Bill Gates, what he did. My start of Bill Gates and Allen, what they did basically, Bill Gates was very smart in mathematics, right? So in the university, what happened is that he mastered a lot of stuff around mathematics when we started the early days of computing, right? When there was the Zenith computer, the X755 and Z100 processors, very early stages of computing. So Bill Gates was a very smart guy with Allen. And what happened is that he mastered a lot of mathematics to start correcting, even debugging some software from Digital Communications, which was a corporation that was starting computers. So basically, the guy mastered, you know, the opportunity to leverage his knowledge on mathematics to correct bugs in software. And he realized that he could make a lot of money out of that. So he just dropped out. He was the best student in mathematics in his university, him and Allen. So we can't generalize and say, you cannot parallelize that with dropouts in Africa, the likes of, let's say, people who are failures in Africa, and say, oh, look, Bill Gates. No, he was not a failure. He actually dropped out because he mastered the art of entrepreneurship much earlier because he was too smart in mathematics.
No, but we did not say he was a failure at all. Dropping out doesn't mean you fail.
No. The point is that in Africa, you see a lot of people quoting examples of Bill Gates, the likes of Bill Gates, as inspiring that you don't need education, and even if you fail in school, you can still do it. No, it is not because he failed. No, he was just too smart.
No, but
Are you saying we don't have smart boys?
No. The point is to separate the two. To say that they are failures, they are dropouts that are dropouts because they were not good. They were not qualified to be in school in the first place, right? That's a different scenario with the cases of the likes of Bill Gates. That's what I'm even myself, I have typical examples. When I started at the uni, I started electronics and computer engineering at uni. And we had some examples of some students who were just too smart that within the third year they were able to start doing programming, local area networks, and they dropped out of school because they were hired. They could not finish their degrees because they were too smarter than even us. So what I'm saying is that
money.
So
why are you saying we cannot equate those guys who dropped out from your uni? Why can't we equate them to Bill Gates?
No,
we can't. Did the same thing. They did the same thing, though.
No.
These guys
Ranga.
Yeah.
Are we not having a problem of setting the same race for different people with different abilities?
That's my point. That's why I said we have to separate it, because people tend to generalize and use examples of Bill Gates. I've heard so many times about this, and then say that, oh no, you can drop out of school, and at the same time you are just the same as those that dropped out of because they failed. So there's a difference between dropping out because
nobody said they failed.
Yeah.
No, nobody said anything about failing. I'm not
saying in this forum.
No, but you are saying they dropped because they failed. No.
I'm saying
at your university, you had guys who dropped out because they were already good enough to go and do something.
Because they could see an opportunity and they were given some opportunities to start something.
That's the same thing as Bill Gates. He saw an opportunity and took it. Why can't we do that?
It's like somebody who goes out and creates a marketplace for computers.
Yeah, my point is that you have to keep scouting for opportunities even at early stage, right? So you might be able to realize that at early stage you find an opportunity, you get a job in your third year. I mean, we are talking about master degrees during our time was taking 5 years for master degrees in computer science or telecom. Right? So you have to scout earlier. But we are saying that you don't. Sometimes you might complete, and when you complete, you also can have opportunities that actually surpass those that might have dropped out earlier. So there's no one formula for everything. It's just that we can encourage that you keep scouting, you keep checking for opportunities even at early stage, but you should not stop, pursuing education because you want to focus on looking for opportunities at an early stage. That's it. You understand? And there are people with that mindset. I'm not saying that in this forum. I'm just saying I've heard we have had such discussions, but some people are overstretching it, and encouraging people not to complete school, actually,
Mm-hmm. But I think if you listened earlier, I actually said the same thing that you are talking about, where I said some people drop out because they realize that they're actually wasting their time. Everything that they are doing, they are ahead of it in class. Yeah, which is typically the case, that the scenario that you are giving us of Bill Gates.
Yeah, and actually, the thing is that if people are encouraged to keep on scouting, keep on looking for opportunities in the trajectory along the path where you're doing your education, you might strike a chance in your third year. You might strike, but guess what? If you don't strike a chance there, you might strike a very good chance and even an excellent chance when you complete your education. So we need to keep on encouraging that, hey, look, You have to keep on scouting. You have to keep on looking for opportunities. And if you find that you can exit at a certain point, just exit like you are driving and go, right? But don't say that, for many people, they think that, education is no longer valuable. And that's completely not correct. That's what I'm saying.
Education is rehearsed knowledge, Ranga. It's not designed to make anyone a genius or a success story.
Also,
As when you complete your education, the next port of call
find
is
a job.
exposure. As when you get the exposure, you start effective networking and positioning.
Yeah, correct.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I get what you mean. But also the other point that I think maybe next time we could discuss together as well is, the meaning of education. When we talk education, does it mean the same across the globe? Let's say in the developing world and in the Western world. There's completely different understanding of what education means and what is supposed to sustain and bring about in terms of opportunities, right? So in the West, some of you, I think you've already seen that. In the West, let's say, for example, I'm in Germany. Uh, in Germany, you learn the art of engineering. You learn a certain culture of engineering, which you never learn when you are in a developing country, which is completely different. The way we started, back home, the way we followed our curricula, our syllabuses and the like, I think we were not taught how to become an engineer. If you're an engineer in Africa, it's not exactly the same as the way a German or a French is thinking from engineering point of view. So the point is that for us Africans, we need to say, okay, what have we learned? Do they interpret education in the Western world? What makes them successful to apply their education beyond theory, right? How can we transfer this knowledge to our own people so that they think as engineers, they develop a culture, groom a culture of
Are we then saying, there's a deficit in transference of knowledge?
Correct. There is. Absolutely.
Then we're a bit then, guys. Because look at time.
Sorry?
Time factor. We are almost dying, and we're still trying to transfer knowledge from one entity to another.
No, but
remember remember that deficit is put on there deliberately. Remember how the education system came to Africa.
Yeah.
It's not a mistake.
Yeah. But also, my brother there, your point I understand. Yes, indeed, we are getting older.
And indwa zvekutaurwa naRu izvo zvanzi imimi vari papa ndimi kuda kushaina nekunzwa kuti Ru apasa kuuniversity ane degree iye anotoona ari kupedza aane mutoro wechikwereti uye zvinorwadza kuita
ndizvo zvinoita.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to medical school, you're limbered with £100,000 worth of a degree of debt. Yeah.
Was it a housemanship?
Yeah, registrar, consultant.
They start working, they start taking their money for what?
Yeah.
Right. I think it's a topic that needs to be revisited.
Absolutely. We need to and maybe we can contribute some points, Kaka, so that we can shape the agenda for next session of discussions again.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be very welcome.
It would be nice to have you back to see.
Right.
Read a lot of
as our tradition, we need to give the final thoughts to our viewers and those who are going to listen to us our recording. For Ranga, you have joined us, so you also joined the club. What we do, every panelist give a final thoughts, what they may want to share with the viewers out there. I think this has been a very interesting topic, and so wow, what an enlightening and thought-provoking conversation about either schooling, education, exposure. I don't know where we started. A huge thank you to our panelists. I know Shumba had to rush early because he had some other things to attend to, and I just want to extend a warm welcome to Ranga for joining us. Very fiery, wanting to air his views. So you're very much welcome, and I want to thank the Umbama Kombe, Jena, and the Soko as our tradition. I think we have covered quite a number of issues, but as our topic is university education worth the time and the money invested. Our final thoughts. I don't know who wants to go first.
I can go first. I think that what they said about exposure. I think it's been echoed by a few panelists. If we are exposed to work environment, if we are exposed to apprenticeship, if we're exposed to other cultures and how they are doing it, if we expose our children to the work environment, not just push them to get degrees. I think even the children are commenting that this is not working, guys. Because after they finish the degrees, they don't know where to start really. They go to work even after interviews. They say, oh, you got the qualifications, but we need experience. We also need experience, 2 years experience. Where are they going to get the 2 years experience? They're coming straight out of uni. So if we get the kids apprenticeships, learn from the masters, hand down the torch, and the skills are learned from one person to the next. That way the kids are already clever enough to go to work and start working, not just straight from uni. I've got my degree, but you know what? I can't even do the job. So I don't know. Maybe we need to look into that system and see how it works.
Thank you very much. Who want to go next?
Okay, I'll go next. Right. Going back to the question that we are actually dealing with, to say if uni education is worth the time and money. Right. I'll look to what Ranga has just come up with to say it's worth the trial. Go on through the system, but at the same time, along the way, the bottom line is, or the end of the story is, you want to make money, right? And now, if you find a place along the route where you can branch off, and you've seen that you can use that opportunity to make money, then branch off from that point. If you have really convinced yourself, although most of the times, although at times you find that when you eventually finish, there can actually be even more opportunities compared to the one that you used to branch along the way. So in essence, we are saying the uni education is worth it. Go on it. It actually also opens your brains for some other things. The people that you meet there, the communications that you get to work with other people, that also does help even in the future life. Even when you actually start your own business, you need that kind of exposure. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can I give Ranga an opportunity?
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, my take on this is that I believe that we should create a platform which could discuss further this topic to understand what do we make of education, what is the difference between education systems, because I believe that sometimes the problem of let's say our kids in Africa, why they then experience what my sister just mentioned, the fundamental question is what kind of education are they getting? This is the first thing. I want to think that at some point we have to think in terms of generations. How do we transfer the knowledge around, what to make of education, how to improve on education. There's also intelligence in education. I want to also think about the example today, for example, a very typical example is China. If you look at the Chinese government, around more than 80% of it is engineers. The agenda for the Chinese, why they are successful. Myself, I'm involved a lot in tech, right? So why they are successful and are kicking out competition from Europe and US and across the whole globe is that there is a certain mindset about education, right? Which they are following. We Africans have not managed to tap into that. So I think that we need to have more discussions about what to make of education, how to exploit education at different levels in the life cycle, so to say. So I think more discussion is needed, and how can we influence our generations as a back home to think practically about education and how to apply education for entrepreneurship. So I think more discussion is needed, or platforms to exchange ideas and knowledge from knowledge transfer, let me call it like that. But it should foster these kind of discussions further to help our generations that are coming.
Thank you very much. Umba.
As usual, I'll keep it short and sweet. Is university education worth the time and money? From my perspective, education is rehearsed knowledge, and it's not designed to make anybody a genius or a success story. Post education, the next port of call should be exposure. From exposure, you go through the pathway of experience. From the experience network, you go on to learn things like effective networking, effective communication, and so on and so on. That significant experience is needed for you to excel as a human being. So just remember, education does not make you a genius, but the world creates you in a genius. Remember, intelligence is abstract reasoning ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those were quite insightful experiences, and this has elevated our discussion as we reflect on this shared discussion. I'll start with what Ru has alluded. I think the young people feel the university education is expensive, it's hard work, and they feel maybe it's us, the older generation, that want them to go through this so that we can go to our social gathering and boast about the achievements of our children. But the takeaway from the panelists today, from Soko, she emphasizes exposure is very important, and we must guide our children, and they need to learn from the masters, either through some form of attachment and apprentice. Jenna alluded has got a view that university education is worth the money, because we need to expand our opportunities, and through that we might be able to network and open more opportunities. Ranga came in very powerful. In the shortest possible time he has been with us, his views I think such platforms are very important, and we need to create more of this, and so that we can discuss and unpack what type of education is really necessary for our generations. And he cited places like China, where 80% of their people are engineers. They've got a particular mindset, and he feels if as as a continent or as people, if we can create our own mindset with a view of where are we going. But all this hinges on creating platform like this that continues to refine our discussion. Umba and the education is rehearsed knowledge. What you need is exposure and the effective networking, effective communication. And I think the bottom line is, I think what we can all agree on is this is a topic that we need to continue exploring so that we can tailor it, and maybe we can begin to come up with possible solutions. I remember there was a particular time I was having a conversation, Naumba. I can do that. There was a guy who went to a very well networked school, and then when he wanted to go to university, he thought he was going to one of the government universities. And the question is, we have been spending a lot of money in an expensive school so that we can network. Then we are being pulled from that to where maybe are now going to not going to have effective networking that will progress you to the next level. so it questions the mindset. But anyway, the discussion will continue. So to our viewers, thank you for joining us. And there have been interaction, and until one of our viewers actually ended up joining us tonight. So thank you, Ranga, for persisting. You tried to call, you couldn't, then until you finally came to the platform.
Thank you, Jenna. Jenna is the one that will actually advertise this event on the WhatsApp group, and so I said, I want to join my security, Jenna, so that I can.
So to our viewers, continue sharing your thoughts in the comments and tag someone who needs to watch this, and make sure you subscribe, like, follow, and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss when we are having such powerful conversation. Until next time, I, Misha, reminding you, keep questioning, keep building, and above all, stay championing the cause of education. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye. Bye bye.